A while back now, it seemed like the New York Rangers and Buffalo Sabres were the perfect trade partners for each other to kind of facilitate some type of a trade, as both teams definitely wanted to kind of shake up their rosters, see some change with their kind of main core players, of course, but also really just try and put their team in a better spot. But obviously, we did not end up seeing a trade happen between the Rangers and Buffalo Sabres, but could we end up see it happening throughout this upcoming regular season or possibly throughout the rest of this offseason? That's what we're going to kind of take a look at in today's video, because I still think there's one player on the Buffalo Sabres that seems like a perfect fit for this Rangers team, and also there is a player on the Rangers that I think could be a potential good fit for the Buffalo Sabres as well, to facilitate some kind of a trade that does make sense for both sides. So the two players that we're talking about are Alexi Lafreniere of the Rangers and Bowen Byram of the Buffalo Sabres. And I'm going to state this first off. I am, of course, a Rangers fan, and I'm a big Alexi Lafreniere fan as well. I have his jersey, of course, and I'm not saying I desperately want to see Lafreniere traded away, but I am a fan of the Rangers. So at the end of the day, I want to see this team be better and get back on track to hopefully winning a cup for the first time in my lifetime. And at the end of the day, if trading away Lafreniere does put this team in a better position to do that, then I'm all for it. Although, I may be a little sad to see Lafreniere go. I do want to see this team become, even better than what they are right now, of course. So if trading away Lafreniere is what it takes, then I'm okay with that at the end of the day. But like I said, I am definitely trying to make it clear that I'm not desperately looking to trade away a guy like Lafreniere, because I do think he can still be a very valuable piece for the Rangers team going forward into the future. But taking a look at the kind of Buffalo Sabres side of thing there, I think Lafreniere is definitely someone who could be quite enticing for a team like them, as they've had some troubles kind of locking up guys. And I mean, JJ Peterka is a perfect example of that, a young kind of rising star forward winger, and he just didn't seem like he really wanted to kind of sign a long-term deal with the Sabres. So with them obviously looking at kind of pieces that could be around with them long-term, a guy like Alexi Lafreniere, who's already signed that big long-term deal, could be a really good and kind of smart pickup for them, because he's already under contract, so he'd be locked in long-term. That is kind of why I do think Lafreniere does make a lot of sense for a team like Buffalo, with all that's kind of gone on with them, of course. And, JJ Peterka was one of those players that was, very much kind of rumored to be possibly going to the Rangers. Of course, he ends up getting traded away somewhere else over to the Utah Mammoth. But I still think, Buffalo could be a pretty decent trade partner for the Rangers, as someone like Bowen Byram definitely could make a lot of sense. And we'll take a look at a kind of mock trade I came up with at the end of today's video. But for right now, let's take a look at kind of what Bowen Byram could possibly bring to this Rangers team if he was acquired. And first off, he is more of a kind of offensive defenseman there than a defensive guy, but I would say is, pretty solid both ways. Not like bad defensively and not bad offensively. Just, I would definitely say he's a little more kind of an offensive guy than a defensive player. He is a good puck mover, solid transitional defenseman there, can break out that puck, which, the Rangers have had troubles with in the past. He is just in general, though, a good offensive defenseman. I think can put up anywhere from probably like 35 to like 55 kind of points. Something around there is a pretty kind of realistic mark, I think. And you may look at his point totals and think that may be a little too high. They're thinking to get about like 55 points in a season, but this is someone who in his first kind of full season there with Buffalo, joining a pretty disastrous kind of Sabres team, ended up putting up 38 points, 7 goals, 31 assists, and all of them except for 2 points were at even strength as well, or shorthanded. So only had 2 power play points out of those 38 there in 82 games played. So 36 points shorthanded or even strength in 82 games played for a defenseman on Buffalo in his first full season, I don't think is too bad at all. So him joining a team like the Rangers and seeing those numbers go up even more would not be shocking to me at all. So I do think there's definitely more to kind of reach there with those kind of point totals for someone like Bowen Byram, who is just a really solid all-around player, I think. I mean, he's not some shutdown kind of defenseman, but he's not bad at all defensively. He is, I would say, a kind of two-way defenseman, but definitely a little more offensive than defensive, kind of like someone like Fox. I'm not saying he's at that same level, but you take a look at kind of Fox's game there. He's good both ways, but definitely a little more offensive than defensive. defensive. So someone like Byram is kind of the same at that, just a lower level, of course. But I still think Bowen is a very good defenseman, and if the Rangers were able to pick him up, I do think he could be a real difference maker for this team. And another really nice thing about Bowen Byram's game is the fact that he is a pretty physical player as well, and also is a good shot blocker. Over his NHL career so far between Buffalo and Colorado, he has 246 games played, 313 block shots, and 337 hits. So well over a hit and block shot per game is not bad at all for a pretty good two-way defenseman who can kill penalties and be on the power play. So I think he's just an all-around really good defenseman. He doesn't have crazy size there at 6'1", but not bad at all. Like 6'1", 205 pounds. Just a solid left-handed defenseman. He turned 24 in mid-June there, so still quite young, of course. Still has a lot of room to grow and develop and get even better, because sometimes, especially with defensemen, it does take a little longer. So I just think he's got a lot more room to grow. He's got a pretty high ceiling there, and definitely could be a major kind of pickup for this team if they were able to facilitate a trade. And next up here, I've got two kind of different defense pairing kind of combinations here, with Byram being in the kind of lineup there. And then we'll take a look after at my kind of mock trade. But first off here, for option number one, we have Gavrikov alongside Foxy for the top pair. Then for the second pair, Bowen Byram alongside Will Borgen. Then for the third pair, I have Schneider on the left side alongside Scott Morrow. To me, the top pair is set in stone pretty much. It's going to be Gavrikov and Foxy, or at least that's what it should be. But then for the second one, even right now, there is still kind of some big question marks with a guy like Carson Soucy and kind of what will happen with him, whether or not he's going to be in the top four there, or is it going to be someone like a Schneider. There are definitely some question marks right now, but I think someone like a Byram could definitely fit quite well on that second pair for this team. And then the other option is, of course, the same top pair, Gavrikov and Foxy, but then it's Byram and Schneider together with Soucy on the third pair on the left side, and then Borgen on the third pair on the right side. So really, these two options just come down to who do you think would kind of really be a better fit alongside Bowen Byram. And to me, I would probably go with Braden Schneider. I'd go with option two there, I think, where you have a guy like Schneider alongside Borgen. But if you would rather have someone like a Morrow in the lineup over a Soucy or Urho, then that's where you're probably going to have to go with the option kind of number one there, with Gavrikov, Foxy, Bowen Byram alongside Borgen on the second pair, because then you can have on the third pair on the left side, Schneider can flip over and have Morrow on that right side, whereas if you're having a guy like Schneider as that kind of second pair right-handed guy, then you're going to have more than likely Borgen as that third pair right guy, which means Morrow is probably out of the lineup there. So that's kind of unfortunate. So if you want to have Morrow in there, you're probably going to have Schneider on that third pair alongside him. But to me, it comes down to really and truly, who do you think would be a better fit alongside Bowen? And next up here, we're going to take a look at my mock trade that I kind of came up with here. And, first off, I'm going to say, this may not be the exact trade that would go down, but I do think it is a pretty solid kind of baseline of what a trade would have to look like and kind of the main pieces probably involved. I don't really see a trade happening where the Rangers are able to get Bowen Byram without giving up a guy like Lafreniere. So to me, it's more likely going to have to include him, and if there is a way to do it without him, then great, but like I said, more than likely would have to include Lafreniere. So my mock trade does have Lafreniere and Carson Soucy going over to the Buffalo Sabres for Bowen Byram and a fourth-round pick in 2026, which is Edmonton's, because they have 2 fourths there, so I gave us the weaker pick, but I do think this is a fairly even trade. I mean, you got Alexis Lafreniere, who's locked up long-term, who's that kind of pretty solid young winger, still got some more upside there, could be going to a Buffalo Sabres team, of course, who's had a pretty tough time at moments kind of signing players to long-term deals and kind of getting them to commit long-term. And then also, you're getting a guy like Carson Soucy, who is, an expiring contract, has 1 more year left, could be flipped at the deadline possibly. They could retain 50%, get a pick or two back, whatever, if they're in a good spot, which they more than likely won't be, of course. And, they're just getting a decent kind of guy to eat up some minutes there, play in the top 4 if he has to, a veteran player with some size, so, not the worst pickup in the world, just kind of help replace some of the minutes lost there with a guy like Bowen, although won't bring nearly the same impact, of course. And the Rangers are getting back a more than likely a later 4th-round pick, with it being Edmonton's, but also, of course, the main piece being Bowen Byram, which I think would be a great pickup. I've talked enough about him, but the one kind of problem with trading for Byram is the really only problem. He has a 2-year deal right now with a $6.25 million contract, which isn't the problem. The problem is, once that deal does expire, he is not an RFA. He is a UFA, meaning he would be an unrestricted free agent. So he could sign anywhere else. He could leave this team for nothing and sign anywhere else in the entire NHL. So that's the one problem with trading for Bowen is he's not locked up long term, and you can't just give him an extension right away to lock him up long term. So you would have to kind of figure out some kind of way to have an idea of him wanting to kind of commit here long term, which I would imagine he probably would be okay with that, but that is kind of the one hurdle here, which may end up being the reason why maybe the Rangers would get back a kind of higher pick or a prospect instead that's a higher level. I don't exactly know, but this is kind of a baseline of what a trade could possibly look like involving the New York Rangers and Alexis Lafreniere being dealt over to the Buffalo Sabres in some kind of a package for Bowen Byram and whenever else would come back over to the Rangers. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content. Also, of course, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on today's video as well. What are your thoughts on my mock trade? Do you want to see a guy like Bowen Byram traded for by the Rangers? Would you be willing to trade away a guy like Alexis Lafreniere? Or would you give up for Byram? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'll catch you in the next one, and let's go Rangers.